You're going to want to make sure that you watch through this whole video because number one is so severe that people are probably going to tell me to delete my channel. Woof woof! Hey guys, it's me Marcus, aka the Mad Dog, and we're back with another video. One thing that really pisses me off is when I hear people saying that they feel like they can't be part of the comic book community because they haven't read this book or because they haven't read that book. Two things. Firstly, the people who say that you can't be a true fan of comics until you've read a certain book will always just keep moving the goalpost back, so just completely ignore them. And secondly, I can guarantee that there are very few people who have read every single comic that's ever been published. So today, in the hopes that this can help a couple of people feel like they are a part of this community, here are the top 20 classic comics that I've never read. And yeah, again, this is another top 10 video that's actually top 20. Reverse clickbait. Coming in at number 20, I've got Frank Miller's 300. Yeah, I've seen the movie, so I know the story of this, but I've never actually owned this book. I would like to read this. I think it'd be very interesting, and from the interior pages that I have seen, this looks like a beautiful book. And it seems like one of the last books that Frank Miller did before he turned into, well, Frank Miller. Number 19, I've got Calvin and Hobbes. I can also include all the Don Rosa Duck books, stuff like Tintin and Pippin, because I've never read any of these newspaper weekly type series of books that they've done. Calvin and Hobbes seems to be the most critically acclaimed one, and when I watch a lot of other people's room tours, this seems to be the book that everybody's got. For some reason, I've just never bought this. I don't even know what it's about. I've seen this on sale so many times and been tempted to just pick it up because of the acclaim that I've heard that it's got. Although admittedly, every time I've brought a book based on the hype that other people have built for it, I've normally been disappointed by the title, so it might be a good thing that I haven't brought this one. But still, this is one of those that I do feel like people would judge me for not having, but either way, it's not in my collection. Number 18, and the first one that is in my collection but I haven't read yet, it's Superman for All Seasons. Yep, this also got a nod in my Where to Start Superman because of the fact that it comes so highly recommended. But especially when you think about Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, these are a creative duo that people seem to have read everything for. I keep intending to pick this up and give it a read because of the fact that Batman by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale was the first book that I ever reviewed on this channel. And I get the feeling like this would be a book that I'd enjoy because it seems wholesome, a lot of people seem to like this already, but for some reason, every time I'm about to crack this one open, another book just comes in and gets fast-tracked to the top of my to-read pile. Number 17, and I can feel the hate that's going to come through in the comments, but I've got Lock and Key. I thought I'd read more of this than I had. This is why it's quite low down on the list, because of the fact that I have actually read, I think, the first 2 issues of this, and that was when it was coming out in singles because of the fact that it was so hyped up because this was Stephen King's son. That was how they had to market this book at the time because Joe Hill hadn't built up his reputation. I've got the box set, and I'm tempted to get that compendium that was recently released, which you can also pick up from the channel sponsor, Organic Price Books. They've got great packaging, fast shipping, and amazing customer services, and if you use code WOOFWOOF, you'll get $2 off your order. And if you promise to not hate me too much for some of the picks on this list, then you can use that code as many times as you like. But Lock and Key is one of those series that I know I'm going to return to. I haven't bothered watching the Netflix series because people say that the book is so much better, which is another reason why it's so low down on this list, and I'm tempted to read this as part of one of my October reads for Halloween. If that's something that you'd like to see, let me know in the comment section below. Number 16, I've got Lone Wolf and Cub. Now yeah, I know I say I'm not a manga guy, but I feel like Lone Wolf and Cub is one of those books that transcends the medium that it's in. In a similar way to stuff like Dragon Ball Z and Watchmen, it becomes something that isn't just identified by the product of what it is. Yeah, I don't really understand what I meant there either, but this is one of those titles that I'm really interested in, and I believe it's Dark Horse who's got the rights for this, so I'm hoping that they do some deluxe editions similar to what they did for Berserk, but this seems to be one of those epic tales that everybody raves about. I would like to read this, it's just that it's not easy to do. Number 15, and again the embarrassment just keeps creeping in because I've got Usagi Jimbo. Now in my defense, I wanted those limited edition hardcovers. I've got 2 of them so far, and that was the way that I wanted to pick these books up. And I have read Usagi Jimbo TMNT, but I class that as a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles book, and considering how revered this Stan Sakai book is, I feel like I need to give this a read at some point. I'm really happy that Fantagraphics is releasing that limited edition set again, and that's another book that you can order from a sponsor Organic Price Books. But I want to read this because I'm really interested in samurai culture, and I know obviously there wasn't really many rabbits that were actually samurais. That was something that took a long time for me to accept, but you know, here we are. And I know this is a lot of people's favourite titles, and hopefully one day I will get my hands on it, but for now, I haven't read any of it. Number 14, I've got 100 Bullets. I've got a random trade paperback of this series, but I've never actually read the full run. And this feels really weird to me because when I was getting into comics, I gravitated towards quite a lot of Vertigo titles. I loved Preacher, Why the Last Last Man. I even love some of the more obscure stuff like The Exterminators. Maybe it's just the pressure of there being so many issues of this, but I can't even really use that as an excuse because I've gladly read stuff like Invincible and Ultimate Spider-Man. Number 13, and if you're watching this Mr. Omar, please turn off at this point in the video because I've got X-Men Days of Future Past. The weirdest thing is I've owned this storyline in 3 different versions and still never read it. When I was getting into comics, I had this weird digest-sized format book that I think was from like some random publisher that wasn't actually Marvel, and I didn't read that edition because of the fact that I wanted it in a normal format, so then I got a trade paperback and I never read that either. Now I've finally got the Uncanny XMen in Omnibus and I still haven't cracked open this part of the story, but I have still read stories from this era like Giant Size X-Men, the Dark Phoenix Saga and God Loves Man Kills, so I have no idea why this is a blip on my radar, but if I look at some of the biggest X-Men stories of all time, this is the one that sticks out like a sore thumb because of the fact that I've never read it. Number 12, and it just gets worse, I'm really regretting making this video, but I've got everything Humanoids. Yes, I remember when the Meta Barons Collector's Edition was coming out, I saw that, I thought it was really beautiful, but I realised I knew nothing about the company that was printing this. They've got such a plethora of titles that I don't even know which ones are the go-tos that I should pick up. And now that I know that they've got super fancy limited editions, that's the only format that I would settle for, but I think they're mostly all out of print now. People who've read these titles rave about them, and I've even had people commenting on my videos saying that this is a series that I need to pick up. I've been trying to expand my horizons a little bit and buy more European comics, but for some reason this is just something that's never made its way into the dog pound. Number 11, I've got Essex County. I love Jeff Lemire. I heard about him when Sweet Tooth was coming out because issue 1 was only being sold for $1, and then I started going back and looking at some of his other titles, and Essex County was something that was on my radar, but for whatever reason I just didn't buy it. I want to, and people say that this is a great collection of stories that often makes people cry, and if there's one thing that you know about me, it's that I love a good cry. So I have no idea why I haven't picked this one up. I know Jeff Lemire's art isn't for everybody, but for some reason I just find it really unique and interesting. But again, I know that there are fancy hardback limited editions of this series that I'll probably never get, and for some reason I think that just makes me resent the series as a whole. Number 10, and possibly the biggest Silver Age event that I've just never read, is the death of Gwen Stacy. I've seen this storyline referenced in so many other comics, but for some reason I've just never gone and read the original. I've read stuff like Spider-Man No More and the Galactus trilogy, but for some reason this is the blip on my radar. I normally tend to find myself getting a bit frustrated with Silver Age titles, which is why I never really tend to buy a lot of them, but the ones that tend to hold the most importance, I've tried my best to at least read those parts of history, but this is the one that just doesn't seem to have made its way into my collection. Number 9, I've got Pride of Baghdad. Again, this is another one of those that for some reason I thought that I'd read, but when I looked through it, I realised that I haven't. This made it quite high as well into my top 10 most wanted DC Absolute editions, and I still do really want to buy this title. I think the art's beautiful. I've loved pretty much all of the Brian K. Vaughan stories that I've read. I've even done a playlist of the books of his that I've read, so you might want to check that one out. But because of the fact that Brian K. Vaughan's got so many go-to titles like Saga, Paper Girls, and Why the Last Man, it seems like this one doesn't get talked about as much. So maybe that's factored into the reason why I haven't read this one just yet, but either way, it's something that I do want to rectify at some point in my comic reading journey. Number 8, and for someone who says he loves events as much as I do, this one's a bit of an embarrassment because I've got Secret Wars. Both the Jonathan Hickman one, but I'm more talking about the one from the 80s. This was pretty much the first Marvel event, and so many good things came out as a result of this. It's probably the reason why we have so many events at the moment, which I know the majority of comic fans don't like, and some of them are still pretty enjoyable. I'm a bit of an event apologist, and this is where Spider-Man got his black suit, which is one of my favourite looks for that character, so I've still got no idea why I haven't read this one. It might be because of the fact that the omnibus is really difficult to get, and that pretty much was just a glorified oversized hardcover. I don't know, maybe my own pettiness towards that is the reason why this isn't in my collection. Number 7, and I am embarrassed to admit this one as well because I've got The Boys. I love Garth Ennis. His Punisher run was probably the best omnibus that I've reviewed so far this year. Preacher is one of my favourite titles of all time, and I think I have actually read maybe the first issue of this, but for some reason I just haven't read the full thing. So I do think I have to technically put this one on the list, and because of the fact that the TV show is so high profile now, it is a bit of an embarrassment from my part that I've never read this one. I've got the 6 trade paperbacks and I made sure that I definitely didn't get the TV cover, so this has to be something that I read sooner rather than later. But as of this time, I do feel a little bit disappointed in myself because of the fact that I've never read this series. Number 6, so the last one was about boys, and this is one that I'll probably never be able to review on this channel, but I've got Alan Moore's Lost Girls. I love Alan Moore as a creator. He is going to be the next one that gets a top 5 notable works, so make sure you subscribe so that you can watch that one. And actually, whilst I'm asking for stuff, give this video video a thumbs up. I need all the support that I can get because of the fact that I'm trying to repent for my sins of not reading these classic books. But Alan Moore as a creator, when I'm thinking about all of his books, the biggest and most high profile title of his that I haven't read so far probably is this one. And admittedly, I don't really know if I've got any intention of reading it because of the fact that all I really hear about is the controversy that surrounds it. I've also heard as well that the ages surrounding the girls that are in it is a bit murky, so I'm not really sure if this is something that I do want to own. But like I said, in terms of Alan Moore as a creator, this is his biggest title that I haven't read. Number 5, and this one's actually quite funny that it's making it onto this list because I've got Mouse. This is one of those books that they say that people who aren't even into comics need to read. And I studied this as part of my university course and blagged my way through it without ever reading this book. It's one of those books that's got such a heavy subject matter that I know that I'd have to be in the right mindset to read. And I've just not been in that mood. Like, I respect what this book does and how important it is for the comic book landscape. But at the end of the day, it's like I say in my reviews, I read comics for fun and I want to just pick up books that I think are going to entertain me. I know this is one of those that I probably should have read, and it is a little bit of a disrespect because of the fact that I haven't. And even more so because of the fact that on the slim chance that my university lecturer from about 5 years ago is watching this, he'll know that I completely bluffed my way into that essay. But still, as of this time, I've just never read this book. Number 4, and it's the exact same situation as the last one because I've got Black Hole. Again, this is another one of those books that doesn't really seem to be seen as a comic. It is more just strictly a graphic novel. But this is another one of those books that I had to study for university, and when I saw it on the syllabus, I thought to myself, great, this is one of those titles that everybody's always been talking about and I've never read. But it was one of my last semesters at university, and this is when I was getting the idea for Fool Girl, which is the book that I wrote and that I'm trying to get published right now. And all my time was just dedicated to planning that book out. So the one time that I actually had a course that I probably could have done well in, I self-sabotaged myself, and as a result of that, I never got a chance to read Black Hole. Number 3, I've got Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol. Yes, I do have the omnibus of this, and I was very excited when I got it in, but as of this time, it still remains sealed. And the reason why I now keep books sealed is because of the fact that there are titles that I think I've read because of the fact that I've heard so much about them, but I haven't actually read, so if I keep it sealed, I know that I've never actually opened it. Not sure if that makes sense to anybody else, but it's my collection and that's the process that works for me. And I've read quite a few of Grant Morrison's books, but they seem like that creator that no matter how many of their titles I've actually read, there's always about 10 more that just seem to appear. It reminds me of that bad guy in Hellboy that for every one you take down, 2 more are created. But even something like The Invisibles I've read the first couple of issues for, but Doom Patrol I've not even touched. I will eventually read this, but for Grant Morrison titles, sometimes I need a lot of preparation before I go into them. Number 2, I've got Bone. Last year I did finally get my hands on the all-in-one complete colour collection, and it is absolutely beautiful. And I do believe it's the 30th anniversary of this series this year, so I feel like I should read this. I've actually got it in my plan to maybe read this in September or November, so it is something that's on the horizon. But I do feel a lot of disappointment in myself for not reading this because of the fact that it seems like such an easy read. I've heard people comparing this to The Lord of the Rings, but with a cartoony art style, and it looks like something that I would enjoy. And this is one of those titles that I genuinely feel like I am one of the only people in the comic book community that's never read this. But the point of this video is that near enough every pick that's on this list is something that I do eventually want to read, but we've only got so much finite time, so I never want anybody to feel like they don't belong as part of this community if they haven't read a certain book. And you're probably wondering why I'm saying this now, and it's because of the fact that my number 1 pick is the one that I feel I will get the most hate for. It's one of those books that if they were ever doing some kind of comic book training camp, it'd probably be at the top of the list because it's none other than Neil Gaiman's Sandman. This is one of those books that's got so much prestige that sometimes I've just gone, yeah, it's great, because of the fact that I don't want to say that I haven't read it. And that's the reason why I'm doing this video, because I don't want other people to feel ashamed of what they have or haven't read. As long as you've brought a comic, you are part of the comic book community. But this is often said to be the best Vertigo title, and when people do their list of the top 10 greatest comics of all time, this is often in there. I know I should have read this, I've got the omnibuses, but if I'm being honest, I feel like there's so much pressure that comes with reading this book. There's been a couple of occasions when I've looked at it on my shelf and I've wondered to myself, is it time? But I feel like I need more preparation. If this is truly one of the greatest comics of all time, I want to make sure that I'm ready for that experience. I'm making it sound like Sandman's my date for the prom, and I'm not sure if I should go back home with it after. But honestly, that is a little bit how I feel with this title, that if I read it, I'm never going to have as good of an experience as everybody said that you get from it. There are books that often get so hyped that it feels like it's never going to live up to that expectation, and I feel like Sandman is in that category. So it's definitely going to take my number 1 pick, and I hope that I do do eventually get the courage to read this, because I'm not really scared by much, so it doesn't make sense that a book is the one thing that's really my foil. But that's my list, and it feels great to finally get this off my shoulders. I can't wait to see everybody absolutely crucify me in the comment section below. But if you feel brave enough, I dare you to post what is the book that's so critically acclaimed that you've never read. If you want to support the channel, it is greatly appreciated. I've got a tip jar down below, and like I said, you can use organic price books. But I'm going to leave this video there, and if you could do me a big favour and share this where you can, it'd be greatly appreciated. But until next time, whenever that may be, just make sure that you stay safe, stay reading the best books that you can find, and stay mad all you dogs. Woof woof! See you at the next video.